The Mineral Resources and Energy Department says there's been an increase in illegal mining in South Africa, with miners risking their lives in completely unsafe and hazardous conditions. These illegal activities are said to be taken over by crime syndicates. We'll talk about the multidimensionality of both illegal mining and artisanal mining in South Africa. Let's get some clarity in our special focus here on Newzroom 405 with artisanal and small-scale mining expert Kgothatso Nhlengetwa. Kgothatso, good morning to you, and thank you very much for being with us on the program. The issue of zamazamas, or illegal miners, has really captivated South Africa's imagination again because of how multidimensional it is. We had a case the other day where there was a court appearance by a man who claimed that his house was basically taken over by illegal miners, and he was forced to open up access to his house for them to access, some mining opportunities underground via his own residence. And we've seen, acts of criminality and so on around the country. And I think a really great and logical starting point is for you to share with us the difference between the calls by organizations such as yourselves in artisanal and small-scale mining versus the prevalence of illegal mining. What is the difference between the two?
Good morning, Iman, and good morning to your viewers. I think this is a great place to start. And let me start by explaining what each is so that you can see the fundamental difference. First of all, illegal mining is syndicate-based. So it's run by syndicates who usually have human trafficking involved, you have prostitution involved, you have illicit financial flows involved, and you have the invading of underground, disused, disowned, and ownerless mines. And this is typically the gold mines. We find it in the Klerksdorp area, in the Springs area, in the Welkom area, as well as in the general gold fields within the Witwatersrand Basin. Whereas artisanal mining, this is a more community-based type of mining. And sometimes you actually find it also in traditional areas where chiefs have actually commissioned the community and allowed them to mine. And this is typically a peaceful type of mining. And these are the people that usually get themselves into cooperatives and are willing to mine legally. So if we were to give them mining zones, for example, these are the type of people that are willing to mine. And I'd like to reiterate, they are not connected to syndicates, and they are not connected to things like human trafficking and illicit financial flows, but rather they are more a community-based, or so to speak, a traditional-based type of mining.
And one of the things I want to add to that inventory list of the profile of illegal mining, Kgothatso, is, of course, the trade and exchange in illicit arms, in terms of explosives and weapons and so on, as we've heard from police as well. What is the impact of illegal mining on the legitimate activities of artisanal miners and mining organizations like yourselves?
What happens is that we actually get clumped up into one group. So there's no distinction between illegal miners and artisanal miners. This then causes that artisanal miners are then enforced with police brutality. They are not regarded as a sector on their own. And even though there's calls for formalization from artisanal miners who are willing to form cooperatives and who are willing to get legal, then they are not taken seriously because they are simply clumped as illegal miners. And then you also have a problem that there is things like them termed as a nuisance, even though they approach government or they approach formal industrial mines for maybe collaborative approaches. They are not taken seriously because they are just seen as this illegal syndicates that are just trying to steal from the country and basically steal from the economy. So that's the basic difference, is that the artisanal miners are seen as the illegal miners. And what happens is that they are not given the fair chance to formalize themselves.
Let's talk about your efforts to formalize yourselves, because there is a huge boon for the South African economy, for economic growth, for job creation, for skills transfer, and proper regulation in the sector. When you think about the massive losses that illegal mining wreaks on the South African economy, we understand that there are billions of rands in potential lost revenue, tax revenue. Of course, there's a threat to physical infrastructure. There's also a threat to public safety. So where are you? As you say, you're not being taken seriously. There's a lack of political will to promote and to entrench formalization, to oversee how you can become viable and recognized. Where is that conversation now? And one of the things we also know is that it does need a holistic approach. It's not just, the Department of Mineral Resources or anyone else, any other department. It requires a network of political support for you to get the respect and the recognition you say that will promote you doing work in the right way.
For sure, Iman. One thing I must reiterate here is that there was progress in 2022 when the artisanal and small-scale mining policy was actually promulgated. There were on the ground public comments that were made, and we thought, okay, there is a difference that's being made, and the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy did actually gazette that policy. But the problem is that that's where it stopped. An example where the problem lies is that the policy calls for artisanal miners and small-scale miners to form cooperatives for them to get mining permits. Now, our constituency, as the National Association of Artisanal Miners, what did they do? We said, okay, form cooperatives so that you can go to the regional offices and apply for mining permits. But when we get to the regional offices, what has happened at national level from the policy has not gotten down to the regional level, and they don't even know that we're supposed to be getting mining permits. We also have another stance is that we've been told that the main avenue for permits to be made is through the National Association of Artisanal Miners, because it's the only current association of artisanal miners, because the policy states that all applications must be made as an affiliate of a mining association of artisanal miners. But now, even as the National Association of Artisanal Miners, we are not being actually engaged with. We are not being told, is there any guidelines, is there any bills that are going to be enacted or anything like that. So these are the problems that we're facing. And another thing we're facing with formalization is that even though we have our own guidelines, we say, okay, we have developed this with a different sustainability practitioners, or we have developed this with certain NGOs. Can you take a look? Because we have said, let us do the work then in case you don't have the capacity. But even then, there's still no political will to actually take on what we have done and go on and progress with it.
Why do you think there's a lack of political will, or the kind of political will that you say is needed? Because you did, note the developments, at least from the legal side and in the legal framework in 2022. Why do you think things have just stalled and gone nowhere further?
In my thinking, I think it's two reasons. Number one, I think it's because they're prioritizing other things other than illegal mining. Illegal mining becomes a topic of the day when something goes wrong. And then when something doesn't go wrong, then they forget about it and it's put on the back burner. So it's a reactive instead of a proactive approach that they're taking. That's the first thing. The second thing, I think, is because there are some people who are in the hierarchy, very high in the hierarchy, who are actually benefiting from the illegal mining and the illicit financial flows and the gold that is going from illegal to legal. These individuals may be political, these individuals may be in the corporate space, and these individuals may be businessmen who are high up in the chain of the elite, but we don't know who they are because they are the invisible. And this is what we call the invisible. This is what we call the fifth level of the invisible chain. Because when we talk about the levels in the illegal mining, the first level is the illegal miner himself. The second level is the gold buyer. The third level is the gold distributor. But the fourth and fifth level is the one we don't see, where the fourth level is the international distributor, and the fifth level is the one who actually receives the gold at the end. So we don't actually see this fourth and fifth level, but the fourth and fifth level are the one who actually finance an illegal mining and make sure it's a consistent syndicate-based activity that consistently has money to function.
Yeah, and because that was going to be my next question, was it's taken on almost this mythological veneer. Who are the other hands? Who are the powerful hands? Who's really benefiting? Where's the money going? As you suggest, it needs crime intelligence. It needs far more sophisticated detection, in order to be able to isolate who are they, and to be able to dismantle that entire edifice of the way that illegal mining works. So what are the next steps then, given, as you say, things haven't gone further? You believe that there is, more sophisticated interference to keep the status quo as it is, to continue with illegal mining in South Africa. And these are questions, of course, we'll have to continue to ask and get answers to. But what's the next step for players like yourselves?
I think there's 4 main things that I can speak about. The first thing, there needs to be just more than a task team, because we do have law enforcement task teams on the ground. But now I think this task team needs to involve more players, because at the current moment, it involves just law enforcement. So the task team needs to involve Home Affairs, because we have immigration problems that are involved. It needs to involve NGOs who are already in the space, who are helping with regards to artisanal mining themselves. It needs to involve us as artisanal mining experts and researchers, as well as the association, the National Association of Artisanal Miners.
Okay.
So if you get that, you get all aspects and all avenues and stakeholders that are within the space who are able to bring viable solutions. That's the first thing.
I've got to leave it there, Kgothatso, unfortunately, because I've got to come out of our interview. But I think that you've given those, especially with an interest in this particular sector, a great deal to think about, and we will certainly, as a channel, take the story forward. Artisanal and small-scale mining expert joining us there, Kgothatso Nhlengetwa.